Hi, I'm Phil and welcome back to the channel. This is my second video documenting my Mounjaro journey. This week we'll be covering weeks 3 and 4, and the video covering weeks 1 and 2 will be linked in the description below if you want to catch up on that. So we're going back to November the 27th, 2024 to cover weeks 3 and 4 of my Mounjaro journey. At that point I was weighing 18 stone 4 pounds, which is around 256 pounds or 116 kilos, give or take. The third jab I was due to take on the Wednesday, the 27th of November, had posed me quite a bit of an issue. As you might have guessed from the thumbnail, me and my family were due to go away for a few days to Disneyland Paris. If I took the jab on Wednesday the 27th, it wasn't going to cover me for the whole of my journey. So I started thinking about what options I had. The first and most obvious choice was to take the pen with me and to do my injection while I was over there. Now, I did a bit of research. I was not going to be 100% whether I could get it through the airport, whether I was allowed to. And there was also the added thing of not having a fridge when I got to my hotel in my room, and the fact that I wouldn't be able to store it in a refrigerated environment, which is how the quick pen needs to be stored. So I quickly ruled this one out. Another option was to take the jab very early in the morning before we flew. This would have been around 3 a.m. as we had very early flights, and I was worried that I took the previous 2 pens and injections just before I went to bed due to a friend's advice telling me to, take the jab as late at night before you go to bed in case you do have any side effects. The sleep could possibly negate some of them. You mightn't experience them at all, or it could greatly reduce them and you mightn't have too bad side effects in the morning. Both times I done this and I had no side effects, so I was uneasy about taking one just before I got on a flight. Obviously if it did have any side effects, then it would be harder to manage than being on a plane for an hour or so and then look after the kids with my partner. So the more I thought about this, the more I thought that's not really a valid option again. So is there any other options? So without asking anyone's advice or researching it, I decided what I would try and do is potentially move the injection date. So I was due to take it on Wednesday the 27th, as I said, but I was going to hold out until 2 days later and take it on the 29th, which happened to be my birthday. To do this, I started thinking, what would the implication be? What would the impact be of doing a 9-day cycle instead of a 7-day cycle? It would cover the whole trip, which is exactly what I was after. Didn't have to stress about taking anything while I was there, or any side effects while I was there. And I decided to go for that option. I moved the jab till Friday the 29th. I took it in the usual way before I went into bed, and I thought, let's see what happens here. Will there be any impact on having a 9-day cycle over a 7-day cycle? The first 7 days went as expected. I had no side effects, no hunger, no cravings, no appetite for food. I ate regularly. I ate fruit, whole grains, proteins in the shape of chicken, microwave rice, Greek low-fat yogurt, plenty of water. And then I started to get a little anxious when I got up to day 7, knowing that the next 2 days I was basically going to be running without Mounjaro in my system. I woke up on the 28th and to my surprise, or I say to my surprise, I'm not sure it should be a surprise now because at this point I'm starting to realise how effective Mounjaro is, but there was nothing. Nothing came rushing back. I didn't suddenly have cravings. I wasn't suddenly reaching for a pack of cookies. I wasn't starting to go for 2 croissants for my breakfast that morning, or a large sandwich for my dinner. I wasn't thinking about takeaway for my tea or just reaching for chocolate non-stop. And I started to think, maybe my brain was starting to change with Mounjaro. Maybe, it was starting to realise it was back in control, that I didn't need to reach for all those things I just mentioned, maybe my willpower was starting to return when it came to food. As I mentioned in the previous video, I've got good willpower when it comes to other things, but just food and diet I don't tend to have. Or maybe Mounjaro was still in the system for longer than 7 days. I think it was a combination of all 3, of willpower, my brain being back in control, and Mounjaro still being in my system. And then it also helped me during, the 29th to stay off chocolates and sweets that I got as part of presents for my birthday. And I might stay off them. And then that night, on my birthday night, I took my third dose of Mounjaro at 2.5 milligrams as a birthday treat, as you will. The next few days went along as fine, craving free, food noise free, feeling brilliant, so much energy still, and if anything, feeling even better than the first 2 weeks. I was more energetic in the first 2 weeks, and I was looking forward to being off work for a few days, off to Paris with my family. So that's what we did. We left very early the Wednesday morning. The kids were so excited and surprisingly well behaved. I was feeling confident in the job and I was ready to explore Paris and Disneyland and everything that I was going to bring for us and the kids. We got to the hotel later that morning after a very early flight. I hit a train to Paris to do the obligatory, Eiffel Tower shots. I'll put a couple up now for you to look at if anyone's even interested. Then we headed back to the hotel, got changed and headed to Disney Village, which if you've been, you can access the village before you can access the park. We bought park tickets for the 2 days. So on the first day we didn't have access to the parks, but you can access Disney Village. Had a great time in the village. The kids got more excited because you're starting to interact with Disney shops. There's a few characters around, things like that. We stopped for dinner that night at a place called the Rainforest Cafe. If you've been, you'll know how lovely and brilliant the Rainforest Cafe is, with the rain and the thunder and lightning throughout. And I'll put a little video up just to show you exactly what I mean by that. It really is a nice place to eat. But more importantly, in here, I was about to eat my first non-healthy food since being on Mounjaro. So we're over 3 weeks. I've had nothing but healthy or nutritious things for those 3 weeks, and now we're about to eat something non-healthy. I was not as worried as I probably thought it was going to be after, like I said before, the first 3 weeks had taught me Mounjaro is working for me, and it's got potential to work long term for me. I ordered one of my favourite meals, which is not my favourite meal, which is chicken fajitas. They were really, really good. I mean, they were excellent. Some of the best fajitas I had. Now, that could be the fact of 3 weeks of non-stop healthy food, my mind playing tricks on me, but I think they were generally really good fajitas. I managed to eat 3 fajita wraps. Now, these were small wraps. They weren't large by any means. And I know 3 filled me up, and I was full, and I know that was Mounjaro doing that to me. But I also know if I wasn't on Mounjaro, I would have polished off all 6 that were on the plate. I'd have got dessert. I'd have had more snacks afterwards, so it all definitely was playing a part. And this was around 7 or 8 o'clock. We left the restaurant and spent another hour in the village. I experienced no instant side effects. I'd had none through the previous 2 weeks of Mounjaro, so I wasn't expecting any. But a little later, I did get my first real side effect on Mounjaro. It was a bloated feeling. It was nowhere near bad. It's kind of that bloated feeling you get when you've had a really, really large meal. Excuse me. And then I suffered a bout of wind to go with it. The wind was just burps, but a lot of burps. I mean, for a good 30 minutes, I couldn't control. I was burping non-stop, loud burps. I had to cover them and make sure I was not around anyone when I was doing it. But after that, I felt normal again. There was no issues that night or the next morning as we headed into Disney Park and the studios. Over the next 2 days, we then enjoyed all the fun, wonder, excitement, magicalness, if that's a word, magicalness, that Disneyland Paris and Disneyland Studios had to offer. I don't think I've ever seen the kids so happy. They were made up, and obviously it really is a magical experience. During those 2 days, I ate 2 more non-healthy meals. One of which was a half rotisserie chicken with fries, which I managed to eat about half the chicken and half the fries. Again, I got the bloated feeling around an hour later, and again I got wind, plenty of burping, and again it passed after 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so, and I felt absolutely fine again. The second meal was like a chicken sandwich. It wasn't a club sandwich, but it had chicken on, some lettuce, maybe some dressing, and some fries again. I ate the whole sandwich, and this time I only managed a third of the fries, probably because I ate the full sandwich, which was 2 or 3 slices of brown or wholemeal bread with chicken and everything on. But this time no wind, no bloated, felt absolutely fine, which was a win. Both days, I should say, I had no breakfast. and I had no dinner, which goes against the medical advice and my own advice, which, by the way, I haven't mentioned. Don't take my advice. I'm not a medical expert. I don't know anything. When it comes to the medical side, I can only give you the what's happened to me and how things have happened for me while I'm on Mounjaro. But yeah, against medical advice and against my own advice, I hadn't ate breakfast while I was away, and I didn't eat any dinner. I did have a breakfast bar both days, which is a healthy breakfast bar around 11ish, and I've been eating fruit in between during the day as well. I did this maybe because I knew I'd also be loading up on calories in the evening, so I was going to be having normal meals, which are higher than the low-fat, healthy meals I've been eating during the first 2 weeks. But yeah, that seemed to work for me, and no loss of energy, felt fine. Energy levels were fantastic, even after eating the normal food. Energy levels the next day, even though I wasn't eating as regularly as I was doing back at home, but I felt fantastic. No difference, no change there from the regular food to healthy food. We got home on the Friday evening, put the kids to bed, got a nice hot shower, and I took jab number 4. Then I crashed out after 7 long fun-filled days. I'd highly recommend anyone who's not done Disneyland Paris to give it a go, and we're saving already now for a few years' time when the kids are a bit older to head to Florida to do the big one there. So jab number 4, Friday the 6th of December. As I said, obviously I took the other one 2 days later, so this tied into Friday the 6th of December. I knew then, based on what I'd done the first week, I was going to make this a shorter dose. I decided that I wanted to get back to my Wednesday regular jab, and this one was just going to last me 6 days. From Friday the 6th till Thursday the 12th of December. I decided to do this instead of just a 5-day course to get me back on the Wednesday. That in my thinking I'd do 2 6 days, and then that would line me back up, for the 18th of December. I've no idea if there was any benefit to this. I've no idea if that was just in my head. It made more sense to do 2 6s instead of 1 5 and then back to 7 after the 9-day. I just went down this route. It seemed to work. The next 6 days fell right back in line with the first 2 week experience I had. I had no issues, no side effects. Lots of energy and focus, and still missing the food noise, which is a big one for me. No food noise still. My brain seemed clearer in this 4th week. But as I mentioned in the first video, I'm not sure this is all Mounjaro or the healthy eating, or the fact that I was off the booze. I'd stopped drinking around early November before it started Mounjaro. So that, I think that might have an impact on the clarity as well. Meals, once again, consisted of fruits, yogurts for breakfast, hummus, salad, eggs for lunch, and an evening meal, always being whole grain, microwave rice with usually chicken breast, topped with some hot sauce or a piece of fish instead of chicken. I'd added diet sodas back into my drinks that week. Tried to stick to Fantas or Sprite Zero, Fanta Zero or Sprite Free. And of course I drank lots and lots and pints of water all day, every day. Anyone that's not getting plenty of water, you really need to. It's vital in this process. Make sure you drink enough, and then an extra glass too, just to be sure. I was still yawning when I wasn't getting enough food. I would then know that was time for my body, needed a bit more fuel, so I'd go and get something to eat, fruit or whatever that would be, maybe a healthy yogurt. Then I'd make sure I put fuel in my body when I was yawning, because I knew that was a sign for me personally that I wasn't getting enough. Anyway, the main reason you're probably watching this is how did my weight loss go while it was including, a several-day trip to Disneyland on holiday. Well, weight loss from the 27th of November to the 4th of December, I don't know. Now, I know you're probably thinking, what, we've just watched all this and you don't know what your weight loss was while you were away. No, I decided when I came back not to get weighed. I like to get weighed on the same day, a week apart, around the same time every day, which is usually first thing in the morning. And I want to get on the scales and do that again. So I skipped that weigh week. I do have the results from the following week. That was the 4th of December till the 12th of December. And I went from 18 stone 4 pounds before Disneyland to 17 stone 11, 249 pound, or roughly 113 kilos. That's a loss over that 2 week period of 7 pound. I was not expecting that. I really wasn't. After several days in Paris, upsetting my diet, my body having to get used to normal food again after a couple of weeks of dietary food or healthy food. And still at this point, no exercise at all. all in all, so really happy with another 2 great weeks on Mounjaro. I've lost 27 pounds in total now, which is, just shy of 2 stone. But there is a big obstacle coming. Christmas is coming. And with Christmas means less work, less structure, and that's when I tend to find it hard not to eat junk food or unhealthy food. And this is exactly what I'll be covering in video 3. It'll be the week leading up to Christmas and Christmas Day itself. How will Mounjaro hold up against the potential of daily indulgence? How will I hold up? Hopefully you join me to find out. But before I go, can I just mention how truly gobsmacked I am with the first 2 videos. The amount of people who've followed me already is absolutely mind-blowing. I'm trying to reply to every comment. I will reply to every comment while I can, but it is taking me some time. I was just not expecting this amount of views. I definitely wasn't expecting this amount of comments. So thank you everyone who has subscribed. Can I be really cheesy and ask you if you haven't to please subscribe? It is really cheesy and cringy. I do feel awkward saying it, but it does help others find the video, and it gets me to share my journey with them, but also theirs with me and you who are watching. The more people who watch, the more comments I'm getting, and in those comments we can share our journey with each other, but also some really, really good advice, some excellent advice I've found in those comments already. And thank you again for everyone who comments, and thank you for you if you've subscribed. Please do if you haven't, and I look forward to seeing you in video 3, which will be covering Christmas 24 on Mounjaro. Thank you, bye.